From the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, flying through the internet, your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the witching hours. We are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, whenever or wherever you are listening to our program. I am one of your hosts, Giant of the Frost, and joining me, as always, is Medium Denny Lee. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. All of you
everybody.
Wonderful people this evening.
Got a good crew here tonight.
We do.
Yay.
We do. All those Team Weird people are here.
Yep. All my weirdos have showed up.
Welcome in. Welcome in. And yes, we do have some new emotes. They took a while to get okayed by the powers that be, but they're up there. So now we can get weird. Get weird with our emotes.
Yeah. I like the jumpy, this is weird. That's like perfect.
Well, if there was ever a week where I just wanted to pop one and start talking about stuff, guest or no guest, or, it was this week. So I'm sure everyone, we've been talking in Discord about the happenings of this last week.
No, it really wasn't weird.
It's time for the paranormal news.
It is time for the news. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you for the sub-hosters. We appreciate it. Take a big guess.
All this frickin' UFOs.
UFOs
being whatever they are.
Yeah. So let's go over, we're not even getting into an article here. We're just going to kind of go over the timeline of what we had going on this week. So we had a Chinese spy balloon, evidently, that was shot down off the coast of South Carolina. It entered Alaskan airspace on January 28th, according to Pentagon officials, and later drifted from Idaho southeast of the Carolinas, where it was shot down. The balloon was about the size of 3 buses and flying at an altitude of 60,000 to 65,000 feet. So it was pretty high up there. And so that was interesting. That's going to catch the eye of people who are following those things. And of course, it was a big news story. But then I felt like I had entered some kind of parallel dimension over the next day, because these reports started coming out, but I was getting them confused. Like, oh, well, they're talking about one, but so the next thing we have going on is we have a UFO that's shot down in Alaska. A U.S. fighter jet brought down an unidentified object over the waters of Alaska. The object broke into pieces after being shot down and was most likely not a balloon, a Defense Department official said.
What was it?
That's a Defense Department official who said that this was not a balloon. That's going to be important here in a second. And it was about the size of a small car. The object was first detected on the evening of February 9th and was headed toward the North Pole before it was struck down.
It was Santa Claus. They really messed up this time.
He was running late. Yeah. On February 11th, a UFO was shot down over Canada. An American F-22 fighter downed an object over the Yukon Territory, which borders Alaska. The object, with the Canadian official described as a cylindrical and smaller than the spy balloon, was picked up on radar on February 10th as it passed over Alaska. It was unclear what the object was, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada said it had violated Canadian airspace. So this being tracked by NORAD, which is a combined effort of the United States and Canada.
Yeah, which they also track Santa Claus.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
They do.
I guess they would have known it was Santa Claus, right? Because they track Santa.
Yeah.
We watch it every
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Yes, Luz. Did the U.S. government shoot down Santa Claus? What a horrible turn of events this has been. February 12th, a UFO was shot down over Lake Huron. An object that first appeared over Montana on February 11th reappeared the next day before being shot down over Lake Huron off Michigan. The object, which was flying at about 20,000 feet, had an octagonal structure with strings hanging off of it, but no discernible payload, U.S. officials said. Some news agencies are reporting that the pilots had given differing accounts of their encounters with the UAPs. possibly even claiming they were jamming their communication equipment. All this timeline coming from the New York Times, by the way. So that's where I got this kind of order of events from. So as I was putting all this together to talk about tonight in the news, I read an update today from President Joe Biden spoke about it today. So today, Thursday, the administration continues to study a series of unidentified flying objects shot down in recent days, but that intelligence officials increasingly believe they were benign balloons used for research or commercial purposes. Biden said the intelligence community's current assessment is that 3 objects shot down over North American airspace were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation, or research institutions. That does not include the Chinese spy balloon the U.S. military shot down last.
It's the same excuse they gave us in 1947. They're still using it. It's 2023, people. You got to come up with something different.
There are some interesting correlations between this and Roswell 47. Now, I personally, and my opinion means just about nothing when it comes to this right now, but when I heard all this, the last thing that I actually thought that it was extraterrestrial UAPs, namely because we shot them down.
Yeah.
I don't know if our
aliens would have let us shoot their stuff down.
I don't know if someone coming from, a faraway star system with advanced technology, possibly thousands of years more advanced than ours, would get shot down. But so I'm willing to say, it could very well just be something Earth-like. But for the New York Times to report that a defense official from the Pentagon said that it was not a balloon, then to come out a week later and say nothing to see here, they were just balloons.
Sounds very similar.
Sounds awfully suspicious. It does. So, looking through here to see what we think about this story today. What do you think about it all, Medium Julie?
I kind of feel too like it was probably something that somebody on Earth made. And either way, they're not going to tell us anything about it for real, because if it was from a different country, then that's classified information that nobody's allowed to know. So, of course, we're just going to get the balloon explanation.
Yeah. And
what do you think, Jennifer?
I am thinking that there is more to our universe than is dreamt of in our human philosophy. And, there could be so many different answers. And I actually heard something really cool the other day about before we go and make assumptions, this is Iroquois tradition of always look for 6 possibilities. And so, always look for 6 possibilities. Always look for more than one option. So one option is it was a weather balloon. I'm inclined. You're right. That's like it. That is kind of it's a very stale excuse.
Yes.
People weren't buying it back in the early days. I'm not sure they're buying it now. It could be some kind of. Who knows? It could be art installations. It could be some kind of people who are doing something like they're just like, hey, let's just go freak people out. Kind of like actually like a modern version of, War of the Worlds, Orson Welles and everything. And who knows, maybe we're going to find out that there's some movie that Netflix or Hulu or some other company is putting out, and this is a publicity stunt that is, designed to get people all up in arms and all bajiggity, and then it's like, oh yeah, that was what that is. So, I've come up with 3.
Okay.
There we go.
Or it could actually be extraterrestrials, but I'm very inclined to agree with you that like somebody with a level of technology that it would take to get here is probably not going to get shot down by our primitive technology. So I think I really do agree with that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also even wondering, would they even use ships? like if you have advanced technology that is, beyond this dimension, because I'm imagining like they are dimension hoppers, would they even bother using like the three-dimensional, would they use something as clunky as even a ship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
that's true.
we're the ones that are still using the giant balloons or whatever, not them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been thinking that way too.
I think I've been on the same page as you for most of my thinking. Like, there's a lot of possibilities that this could be, and even though I'm kind of a UFO guy, this kind of stuff, gets me excited. Like I said, being shot down right off the bat, I was like, well, probably not extraterrestrial. But what could this be? Could this be some kind of other countries, like drones that are flying over our country that are being shot? There's all kinds of things. That could be. It could have been. I don't know. Like you said, I mean, there's an infinite amount of possibilities almost. But for them to be so secretive about this already, and obviously giving kind of weird cover-up answers after they already kind of inspired the conversation, and this goes off all of the. I probably get in trouble in certain circles for saying that disclosure, but there has been a certain amount of disclosure with the U.S. government and talking about these things that they've seen that they can't identify. And so all this is still garnering a lot of attention. And then for this to happen right off the tails of that, I don't know. It's interesting. So yeah, that was the big news for this week. There's a couple other things that I did dig up. Earth's inner core stop spinning. New study finds.
I heard about that too.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, new study.
Let's not do that, Earth. What are you thinking?
New study finds it may soon start turning in reverse. So planet's Earth's inner core may have stopped turning and could go into reverse, according to a study published this week. Earth is formed of 3 layers: the crust, the mantle, and the core. Made almost entirely of metal, specifically iron and nickel. Its inner core rests 3,200 miles below the crust, separated from the mantle. So essentially, they have been recording seismic records, and it shows that typically the Earth's core does change over time. This globally consistent pattern suggests that the inner core rotation has recently paused. Which brings up interesting, well, it's really important because I'm sure a lot of aware, but if you aren't, that spinning of the iron core is what causes our electromagnetic field, which essentially also protects the Earth from all kinds of radiation and things like that. So they're heavily investigating that right now. Some scientists tend to believe that this is just a cycle that happens between the electromagnetic field and the core. So it's just kind of like this weird magnetic thing that's happening right now with the core of the Earth and the magnetic field. So we will see, but something definitely to keep an eye on moving forward.
Like, is that part of the process of the poles switching? Because people talk about that all the time. Yeah. Is that like part of that process?
Yeah.
And if the poles shift, what does that mean for us? Does it do anything, or is it going to be like,
Well, it's definitely going to mess. When I was younger and I heard about the pole switching, I actually thought about like the Earth's crust having. But for when I read into it, it looks like it'd still be a disastrous effect because you're talking about all the magnetic equipment would essentially be completely done. Which is a lot of important, important stuff.
CMC Air Boss said we have to buy new compasses.
We'd have to buy new compasses. Well, that's interesting. Jennifer. Yeah, go ahead.
It strikes me that in some ways, where it's like for those of us who are tarot people, it's like the Hanged Man, in the sense of like everything is turning upside down. But the other thing I'm really wondering as we're talking about this is whether or not the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, or the earthquake, this massive earthquake, it's like, as above, so below, as within, so without, the core of the Earth starts shifting and it's kind of like the head bone is connected to the thigh bone. Perhaps this would explain why all of a sudden we've got this wild seismic activity going on the surface of the Earth. So it definitely seems like buckle up, Buttercup. We're in for an interesting ride.
Very well could be, that's for sure.
And you brought that up, Jennifer, and that's one of those things that I almost had to skip over with this week as I was going through my news. We had this horrible earthquake, and of course, they need a lot right now, and there's been a lot of aid and stuff going there. So hopefully, all of the recovery and all that stuff goes as well as it possibly can for all those people affected by that. And there's another story I didn't really get into this week, which is the train that derailed in
Ohio, in Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah, in East Palestine, Ohio. So
yeah.
After a toxic train derailment, Ohio residents report rashes and worries. Now they've been told by government officials that there was nothing to worry about, but emotions
pay no attention. Move along, folks. Nothing to see here.
It's just a weather balloon.
Yeah. So fear, uncertainty, and anger are mounting among residents of this Ohio village after a train derailment and fire unleashed a glut of toxic chemicals on February 3rd. Officials have tried to assure locals that the town is safe to live in, but many say that's only left them with more questions. Concern about air pollution from the Norfolk Southern train's wrecked rail cars has given way to long-term worries about contamination of the water and soil in East Palestine and beyond. Many who evacuated as the blaze burned are questioning whether it was safe to come back. Some say they are suffering headaches and rashes and are not comforted by what they see as a lack of solid answers from authorities. A town hall meeting Wednesday night. Residents left with few answers and more anxiety. I heard that were supposed to have another meeting and the officials didn't show up for it.
Wow.
This has been 2 weeks since the crash, and still, even today, there haven't been sufficient answers. The fire and derailment, with federal investigators have said, appeared to have been caused by mechanical issues, spilled hazardous chemicals, including vinyl chloride and butyl acrylate. Hopefully I said that right. The threat of an explosion forced the evacuation of 1,500 residents, and the controlled release of vinyl chloride from unstable rail cars spewed a toxic plume into the air. If you've seen the pictures, it's crazy. And today I started seeing pictures on social media of pictures taken from like above the clouds. And it just looks like a black void over that area. These white puffy clouds and then just a circle of black nastiness in the atmosphere. So if that picture is correct, because, I haven't been, if that's not if that picture is true, then what they're saying about the effects of that is not true. There's some real bad pollution going on there.
It also made me think of Flint, Michigan, Keisha, which is where one of our lovely people lives. Our whole Lucy gang lives there. So and the lack of answers from authority, it just feels like this is a consistent thing right now. It's just a breakdown of everything. And I'm talking about it in a small level too. Like Frostgiant and I are both high school teachers, and we see the breakdown in our school where nobody in charge has any answers. They're not accountable for anything. And I just feel like this is happening like all across the board, that there's this breakdown. But I feel like the breakdown needs to happen because we need some better stuff, people. We need to fix it, make it better. We can't have this crap anymore.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's just... Go ahead.
I was going to say there's one other thing that I heard about, and I only heard about it because I'm part of an international prayer community that is all very, very woo. But one of the members who was praying, I was praying with the other day, is in New Zealand, and there was a major cyclone that hit New Zealand. And New Zealand has been reeling from this cyclone that has unhoused thousands of people and decimated, like just like wiped, parts of like buildings just like off the land, in a sort of a similar way to my understanding with what's been going on in Turkey and Syria is like, there are villages and places that no longer exist. And so,
Wow.
There's this, and of course with Turkey and Syria, we've got this mass exodus happening where all of these souls are crossing over. Like I heard I haven't heard the number since yesterday, but it was like something like 48 or 49,000 people are dead.
Holy moly.
There's stuff going on right now. Like, we could just pay no attention, move along, folks, nothing to see here. But, you guys are both teachers. I'm not a school teacher. I spend a lot of time teaching. It's like, it definitely, if you're looking, it seems like there's stuff going on for sure.
Yeah. I love that you said your prayer circle was very woo, because that's all I'm about is the woo woo.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So bring it on. All the woo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I feel, going back to what we were talking about previously, Jenny, just there's a breakdown in a lot of different areas right now. There's not enough buses, and I'm not even talking about school, like charter buses. Concert tours are being canceled because there's no tour buses for people to take. There just seems to be kind of just like a deconstruction that's taking place right now. And I guess maybe the good thing about that, like you said, is maybe we can build it back better again. Maybe there can be a reconstruction of everything, kind of in a better way. But
it takes a huge
for real
transition for that to happen. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, let's talk about our guests, Frosty. What are we waiting for?
So I want to welcome everybody in. If you've been in, if you're just joining us in here, welcome in, welcome in. It's Thursday, and this is the Witching Hours. And please welcome our guest, Jennifer Moore. Jennifer Moore is the author of multi-award-winning Amazon bestseller Empathic Mastery, founder and headmistress of the Empathic Mastery Academy and Fairy Godmother Apprenticeship Program, and also host of Empathic Mastery Show podcast. She's a master trainer for EFT International and a mentor and healer for other highly sensitive empathic women. Magical and intuitive from the get-go, Jennifer experienced her first prophetic dream when she was 9, and she's been navigating her extrasensory awareness ever since. Supporting intuitives, lightworkers, and creatives to use their abilities for good is Jen's greatest passion. Learn more at empathicmastery.com, and I have some links.
I already put the link. I already did it.
Excellent. So we'll put those
Links
in there.
are in there.
Yeah, so go check this out with our conversation tonight. But welcome to the program, Jennifer. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing really well, and thank you so much for having me, you guys, Jenny, Lee, and Frosty. It is wonderful, wonderful to be here. And, today it's it was I live in Maine, and it's 51 degrees here.
Oh, that's...
which is really warm for this time of year. It's another one of those like, something interesting is going on. And that kind of warm weather is just such a blessed relief in the middle of February. So it's been I've had a lovely day. I've had some amazing conversations with a lot of amazing human beings. And before I got on here, I was actually spent about 2.5 hours in the Akashic Record halls working with and talking to the ancestors for a client. So it has been an amazing day.
Oh, wow. Well, we were actually just talking about the Akashic Record stuff last night on another friend stream, and we've been talking about bringing that up and doing some more conversations about that. So maybe that's something we can talk about a little bit tonight as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not in my bio, but I'm actually an Akashic Record practitioner and really love working with the records. They are just, you can pretty much find anything in there.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely, that's for sure. And so I guess we'll start kind of at the beginning. So you said that in your bio, it says that you started having prophetic dreams at the age of 9. So how did all this kind of get started for you? How did had those dreams of how did all that start?
So, I think in many ways it started before that, in that I come from a long line of highly sensitive, what I call world-class awfulizers, people who could anticipate the worst and then go down a rabbit hole with it. I came from people who are very sensitive and, in hindsight, like with a lot of people with psychic abilities with that, but no vocabulary for it, no real understanding of it, and and a fair bit of like, this can't be real going on. But I was, from the time I was a tiny little child, I was feeling other people's stuff. I was picking up on the thoughts, the feelings, the energy, and the sensations that were going on in the world around me, which is pretty much how I personally define the word empath, is that an empath is a person or a being who is picking up the thoughts, feelings, and energy. But the thing about being an empath is that where somebody who is maybe a psychic, a medium, an intuitive with extrasensory perception, they know that they're picking up information, but they know it's coming from outside. What happens for empaths is that we process information as if it is our own, as if it is coming through our filters. So when I was 9 years old, I was already very emotional, very sensitive. I was already very creative and artistic, and also very sort of like socially anxious. But when I was 9 years old, I had this night where I had this vivid dream that my mom had died. And it was a horrible dream. And then the next day, I had the worst day of my 9-year-old life. I was just despairing. I was upset. I was just really having a hard time. And at the end of the day at dinner, my mom announced that my friend's mother had died of breast cancer that night. Now, the thing that was interesting was that this was a friend who had been one of my very first like BFFs when I was a very little girl. Like I'd met her when I was about 3.5 years old. But she had moved from the state I was living in, Massachusetts, to New York. And at that point in time, I mean, we were too young. Like she moved when she was we were about 6. So we weren't pen pals, and long distance phone calls would have been prohibitively expensive at that point in time. So it was kind of like the relationship had just ended. And it had been about 3 years since we'd even seen each other. And all of a sudden I have this vivid dream about my mom dying at the same time that her mother had literally died. And I somehow knew, I don't know how I knew, but I knew that there was a direct correlation between her mother's death and what I was picking up on. And what I find fascinating, and it's only been since I've been, interestingly, since I've been talking about this on podcasts, that I put something together, which was that because I am an empath and I experience things through my own filters, I processed the information about my friend's mother's death as if it was my experience. Whereas if I had experienced things like I was just having psychic experiences, I probably would have had some kind of like awareness, like I might have had a vision or a telepathic thought, but it would have been like seeing her with her mother at her deathbed or seeing her mom die, but knowing that it was about the mother dying, not about, not through my own experience. And so I realized, it's so fascinating to me how this very first experience of like, whoa, this is a prophetic dream, this came true, or this is real, how it was through the filter of being an empath and that processing it as if it's your own. And something that you said earlier, I was just thinking about, that I was like, oh, this is the perfect segue, is that one of the things that I find is so hard for so many of us when we are extra sensitive is that we pick up a lot of information that our culture does not want to acknowledge. And as a result, we are often being told that we're too sensitive, that we're overreacting, that we're taking things too personally, to just suck it up, get over it. You know, that's not real. That's not happening. It's all in your head. And I'm just thinking, in a way, that's kind of what we know, as you were talking about, not acknowledging these objects that are up in the sky, or, oh, it's just benign, it's just a weather balloon. That in a way, we're kind of like looking at that socially too, that there's like, we're picking things up, we're seeing things that are happening, and then we're kind of getting this sort of like, hey, yeah, no, don't pay attention to it. So anyway, I just wanted to tie that back in, because as you were talking about the news, I was really thinking about like the meta of, both on a personal level, the things that we are sensing and then being invalidated about, and then on a global level, being, sort of being gaslit about as well. No, so that's probably a long answer to a medium-sized question.
Well, that's great. And I think you kind of bring that up. That's interesting, talking about, maybe, those people being interested in having more questions. We live in a universe that is, 99.999% unexplained, that we don't know what's going on. We live in this fantastical place that I think just begs curiosity, and instead it seems like oftentimes we are forced to live in a world of the mundane, where you get ostracized if you start asking questions about wanting to understand the universe. So I think you make a good point there. Well, so before we move on, talking about the dreams a little bit, and this is something that's always intrigued me. Because I dream a little bit. Well, obviously everyone dreams. I don't remember a lot of my dreams, but I do from time to time. How do you determine, or do you, whether a dream you're having is related to empathy, whether it's like a clair, or whether it just happens to be a regular dream, or is there a difference?
In my experience, there's absolutely a difference. And when I was a child, oh my God, I mean, I had a very active dream life, and I had a lot, like I experienced like intense dreams. And then when I was young, I was in my teens and my early 20s, the joke, that old, I don't know if you remember that old song, I had too much to dream last night. But like I was just wrecked. I would wake up in the mornings just exhausted from the dreaming, because I was processing so much information in my dreams. But what I have noticed is that, at least for me, there is a quality of clarity and vividness that prophetic dreams have, or, where you're getting information coming from the outside, that sort of the psychological processing dreams do not have. And what I find is, when I have dreams that are more in the metaphysical or paranormal, like extrasensory perception dreams, what I find is that they tend to come through clearer. They tend to make, in some weird way, they make more sense. Like, for example, I used to have the experience of people would, usually it was boyfriends, but people who I had some kind of an emotional connection to would come and talk to me in my dreams. And a lot of times, like, I would call them and be like, hey, I dreamed about you last night. And they were like, oh, that's really interesting. I dreamed about you last night. And so we would have these experiences where we would kind of like, visit each other in the dreaming. And it was almost like it just felt more real. And it wasn't as mucky and convoluted. Like, I don't know about your experience with dreams, but my personal experience with the sort of psychological processing dreams, which for me, I would say probably 75 to 80%, if not more, of my dreams are just my ego and my emotional self just trying to make sense of things. But they have this way of, like, they slip through your fingers. They're constantly moving from one thing to another. There isn't a lot of logic to them. They're not sequential at all. You kind of get the feeling of them, but if you try to pin it down or describe it, it's sort of like, I don't know, like it's kind of like putting your finger on like a soap bubble or something, or, it just moves. Whereas in my experience, the prophetic dreams tend to, or the you know, sort of the parent extrasensory perception dreams have a tendency to be like make more sense. But also there's often this quality of vibrance to them, this quality of vividness to them. There's this, and also I find that I can remember them much more clearly, much more vividly, and I can recount them. Like I can still remember pieces of that dream from when I was 9 years old. Like I can still see parts of it. There's lots and lots and lots of dreams that I've had over the years, and I'm just like, I mean, I can kind of tell you what I dreamed last night, but if you ask me what I dreamed 2 or 3 days ago, I'd be like, I don't know, beats me. So that would be my answer to the difference for me between dreams where you're getting information versus dreams where you're processing stuff.
I think for me too, it also has to do with how does it make me feel?
Yes.
Like, did I have a very emotional response to it? You know, like, is it something that I felt like this was really important? Then that also is for me part of whether I know it was something that was probably actually really happening and not just us filing away our day, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I almost want to do. I almost wonder if we could do a poll real quick. I'm curious how many people experience like those vivid dreams, like you were explaining there. How many people in chat kind of have that kind of experience? Because I don't. I remember some of my dreams, but they were mostly like nightmares and stuff like that I had when I was a kid. And typically each day I don't remember the dream I had the night before. I might remember as I'm waking up in the morning, and then very quickly they leave, and I try to hold on to them. Like I've tried to make some kind of effort to try to start experiencing a more lucid dreaming and vivid dreaming and stuff, but I haven't had any luck with that yet. So we don't have. Okay. Yeah, if anyone wants to get us started in chat, let me know. Go ahead.
You know, I actually think there's a really, really big difference between lucid dreams and prophetic dreams. Because lucid dreams, my understanding of lucid dreams is that lucid dreams is where your consciousness, you are consciously aware of what is going on and you're navigating your dreams. And whereas a prophetic dream, you may be mindful or aware of it, but it's not like you are willing the process. Whereas like with a lucid dream, somebody can be like, oh, I'm going to flip the switch. I'm going to change this dream. I'm going to fly. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do that thing. Whereas a prophetic dream, at least in my experience, it's sort of like it's more like watching a movie that you're not directing. Whereas in a lucid dream, you're in a movie that you're acting in and you're directing.
You know that it's a dream and you can change it.
You know it's a dream and you can change it. And I have a friend who has been a lifelong lucid dreamer. And it was funny because at one point he commented that he kind of missed the freedom of not being a lucid dreamer because it's kind of fun not knowing what your dreams are going to do. Whereas with lucid dreams, it's kind of like you're in charge the whole time. And it's just not, after a point, like how many times are you going to go flying? There's something about that kind of like, going to the movie theater and having no idea what's going to happen that the non-lucid dreams can have.
Okay, so we do have a poll going. So we'll see.
I like the spontaneity of a dream, that I don't know what's going to happen, and that it could be one person 1 second and a different person the next second. That's fun.
Yeah, I do too. And I might have had prophetic dreams. I just don't remember them.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly would wonder whether or not there is any gender correlation with this, because I will say, and this is completely anecdotal, in my travels, many of, especially the cisgendered males that I have known, don't remember their dreams in the same way that women tend to remember their dreams, and or females tend to remember their dreams. And like I said, I mean, I'm not a research scientist, I've never done a study on this, but anecdotally, I have noticed that women, the females that I've known over in my life, often have more of experience with their dreams than a number of like the men that I have talked to. One thing, Frosty, that I have heard, I never had the discipline for it, but in terms of being able to stay connected to your dreams, is that I know a lot of people, two techniques. One is grab a glass of water, put it beside the bedside, take a sip of it before you go to sleep, and tell yourself, when you wake up in the morning, when you sip this water, you will remember your dreams. So you're basically setting up a hypnotic suggestion that you're going to use basically like a prompt that is going to help you, and an anchor that is going to help you to recall your dreams. So that's one way. And then the second part is have a dream diary. And as soon as you like open your eyes, you grab the diary and you jot down whatever you can recall. And as you get used to that, the information starts to get easier and easier to retain. I've got friends who've been keeping dream diaries for years and years and years. And what's fascinating is sometimes you go back in and you're like, oh my God, now I understand what this is about. Like I said, I have attempted to keep dream diaries at various points in my life, but I am a verbal person, not a writing person. And so for me, like the first thing in the morning when my brain isn't kicked into gear, coming from a family of sort of like neurospicy people where dyslexia really runs in the family, writing in a dream diary when I'm not even awake, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually only write down the ones that are the prophetic ones, or that had real meaning. But yeah, who's got time to do that in the morning?
Yeah,
Maybe
because you were keeping a journal of a lot of your dreams for a while. I remember that.
Yeah, like when I was in high school, I was trying to do that, which now going back and reading those are interesting.
So we have the poll.
Here's our poll.
Do you experience prophetic dreams? 82% said yes, 9% said no, and 9% were unsure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So nine people in chat said that they do experience prophetic dreams, which is a much higher number. Even though I know we have a lot of wonderfully gifted people in here.
That's because we got all the woo-woo weirdos in here. That's why.
I wasn't expecting that number to be quite that high.
We're a skewed survey here.
We are a skewed survey, for sure.
Yeah.
This isn't going in a scientific journal, though.
No.
So we're okay.
Oh, goodness.
All right, so we were talking about the dreams you were having, and your childhood friend's mother who died. You had that dream. As a child who's an empath, how does that like? Do you think that's a benefit? Do you think that that's something better explored as an adult? Do you think that's a benefit for a child? Was it something that caused you more harm or more good, do you think, as you were growing up?
Like you're allergic to tomatoes, you have blue eyes, you're like I think in some ways it is what it is. Like it's just is the nature, it's in my nature. And what I would say is that what was hard about it was not necessarily the ability, but our the social experience of being different, of being an outlier, of being, I sort of, I was born on Christmas Day, so I have that, but I was, so that was sort of, but I was like, I always identified with Rudolph, I always identified with like that I didn't really play well with the other reindeer. They didn't let me in on the reindeer games. And so I think the hard part of it wasn't my age, but it was more about growing up in in a culture where people did not believe in this stuff, where people did not perceive it as accurate, where people thought that it was all in my imagination, that it was all hooey. And I grew up, my mom was a recovering ex-Catholic who had left the church before I was even born. And my father was raised in a sort of intellectual, like, maybe church on Christmas and Easter, but very much like an atheist family. My grandparents, who for that generation was pretty radical, like my grandmother was born in 1908 and she was an atheist. And my grandmother was like, I saw the best bumper sticker a number of years ago that basically said born again agnostic. I don't know, and neither do you. And but with my grandmother, she was as rigid about being an atheist as the most like fundamental evangelist. Like she was just as invested and rigid in her perception of the world that there was nothing, as some of these, as some people are about there is something and what I know is right and you are all wrong. So my experience, what was hard about my experience was that I was picking up so much information and I was processing it primarily emotionally, but nobody was validating it. Nobody was acknowledging it. I was just basically being told that I was too sensitive, that I was overreacting, and that I was just weird. And but the prophetic dream in many ways was like the breadcrumb. It was the big puzzle piece. It was the clue. Because just picking up on the intensity and the emotions, especially as a kid, you just think, oh, this must be mine. I must be just weird and scared and sad. But having that dream, suddenly I was like, I'm picking up information I shouldn't be picking up. Like I'm getting more information. And so that was sort of the door opening to my journey of wanting to learn more about extrasensory perception, about the paranormal. And I mean, I was born in the early 60s, and so was like growing up in the late, like I was like reading and spending time in the public library in the late 60s and into the mid 70s to early 80s. And, when we're talking about like the mid to late, like early to mid 70s, like there's like one stack in the library with like, like books on the occult and the paranormal, like Hans Holzer and just the weirdest of weird stuff with not a lot, like the quality of the information that was available at that time was so much more limited. And the thing is that it's been amazing. I mean, one thing about the internet is that, we do get to connect. Like the fact that we are all here, yep. We are all identifying as woo. We are all, we're all a bunch of weirdos here, but we can validate each other's experience and we can say, yeah, this is real. This is my experience. And I think what has happened is where we used to not have any way of connecting with each other, we all felt isolated, strange, and different, and like we just must be making this up. Now there is so much more understanding and access to the information that people do not take this, like people do not like give you nearly the kind of hairy eyeball and, side eye that they did when I was a kid. Because when I was a child and when I was even as a teenager and a young adult, many, many people just did, like they really didn't, like it was like the paranormal wasn't even, like there was no, it was just a joke. Like it was substantially, there was so much less space for it. And there was so much less validation or acknowledgement of it. So, I'm incredibly grateful for that first prophetic dream because it started me on the path of seeking. It started me on the path of trying to find answers. It started me on picking up and reading books, and fortunately, over time, running into other people who are like, here, you need to read this book. Here, you need to check this thing out. So that by the time I was like 17, 18 years old, I was starting to find my people. I was starting to find tools. I picked up a tarot deck. I was like 18, actually, I think 19 when I got my very, like my 19th birthday, I think was when I got my very first tarot deck. I might have been 18, but I'm pretty sure I was 19. And, so it was quite a journey.
Yeah, like that prophetic dream gave you something to hold on to. Like, this isn't just something random. This isn't just random. For real. Yeah.
This is for real. This isn't just random. This isn't just me making a big deal out of nothing. This isn't just me being overly sensitive and overly emotional. This was like, there was a direct correlation. It was just too obvious. The timing was too clear. There was just too much like this happened and then this happened. So, I guess in hindsight, I would say it was probably one of the greatest gifts I was ever given, because it allowed me to validate and acknowledge what was going on for me.
So skipping ahead a little bit, when did you really fully understand that you were something called an empath?
So the word empath, one of the jokes that me and a couple of friends have is empath is the new black. Like, it's become like the super trendy word. And I mean, everybody and their uncle is an empath now. And
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, it's really, and I'm not sure that everybody who thinks of themselves as an empath is necessarily an empath. But part of it is because the word itself has it really doesn't have any set definition. It's a very amorphous thing. And so different people really approach it in really different ways. My first encounter with the concept of empath was back watching the Star Trek, original Star Trek, where there's the original episode called The Empath. And that was, for me, and ironically, the character that was the empath in the story was named Jem. My initials are Jennifer Elizabeth Moore, Jem. And so it was like, that was my very first encounter with it. But I was 18 when I met another empath, and, I was in college at the time and hanging out with these people, and this guy, he was like, I'm an empath. And I mean, at that point, it's kind of almost unheard of that anybody was identifying as an empath. Like, it was next to, like, nobody. I knew I had telepathic abilities. I knew I had psychic abilities. I knew I had clairvoyance. I knew that I could pick up information. But few people were not necessarily thinking in terms of empath. But I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, where this kid, he looks at me and he's like, I'm an empath, and you're an empath too. And it was like, it was like sitting in a hall of mirrors, where it was like these two mirrors were just reflecting each other, and it just went on forever. It was amazing. It's another one of those like memories that just like is burned into my brain. I will never forget it. And so, Space 1999 with like Maya the shapeshifter, sensitive, and then Next Generation comes along with like Deanna Troi, the empath. I was like, I knew, so from the time I was like 18 years old in the early 80s, I knew I was an empath. I understood that, but I understood what empaths were, but I did not understand the ramifications of being an empath. I did not understand the profound impact that being an empath has on pretty much every single aspect of life. And, it can show up in different ways for different people, but I didn't get how much it was affecting my ability to take risks. I didn't get how much it was affecting my relationships with people. I didn't get how much it was affecting my ability to make a living, to actually, and to charge money for things. And so for me, this has been a multi-decade evolution to fully grasp. Like I was saying, I mean, it's only been since I've been really actively doing a ton of podcasts and talking about this that I suddenly was like, oh my God, the prophetic dream was the way it was because I was an empath and not just a psychic dream. So I guess what I would say is I feel like I'm still learning. I feel like I'm still coming to understand. And, you know, the more time I spend with it, the more I'm like, oh, so that's why that's like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a continuous learning experience. That's for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah. And if anybody says that they stopped learning and that they've learned it all, then
or that they're good and or that they're good and they've finished doing their emotional work and doing their healing work. I'm like,
there's
really?
always something else to learn, even if it wasn't, you know, even if it's not that path, there's some other path they could be, you know.
Absolutely. There's always something else to learn. And I mean, and I have to say, and I think I was watching something just the other day about this really sweet little movie called Phil that Greg Kinnear directed, not metaphysical at all, but very sweet. But there was this one of the characters was like a scholar, a historical author and scholar who wrote about Socrates. And I guess he was saying that something that Socrates said was, you know, basically it's like the older that I get, essentially it kind of paraphrases down to the older I get, the more I know nothing. Yeah. And, you know, I got to say, there is an incredible relief in being stupid. Like there's an incredible relief in just being able to say, you know, the universe is substantially vaster than my limited human capacity to understand it is. I'm just going to let it be good that I am like, I'm not ever going to fully understand any of it. Yeah. And I will probably misunderstand a lot of it too.
Very true.
Yeah.
So right now, what's your favorite thing about being an empath?
I love that question. My favorite, so I'd say it's kind of like it's a spectrum of favorite things. One of my absolute favorite things about being an empath is the ability to connect with people and to form and to establish rapport really quickly. That I can sense where people are at. I can sense when somebody's somebody that I am comfortable with and I like, or if somebody's kind of icky and I don't want to have anything to do with them. I really appreciate that. But the other thing that I absolutely love is that being an empath is in many ways works in this way, especially as a healer and as a teacher, where I can feel and sense what is going on with the people that I am serving, and I can feel the emotional congestion. I can feel the distress. I will often have, I can sense what's going on, but I can also sense in real time as things are shifting for them. And so I know if something is not working for somebody, I know that I need to shift or adjust. So instead of just staying banging something over the head and trying to force around, a square peg into a round hole, I adapt, I adjust. And I think that some people who are not sensitive and who are not who are impervious to what's going on with other people, they might be continuing to try to force a solution that is not working for the situation or for the people that they're trying to impose it on. And as an empath, I sense when something's working and I sense when something is not working, and I can adjust accordingly. And that is one of the things that I love, love, love about being an empath, is that I can adapt. And I also get the contact high that comes from the relief that people experience when things really shift for them. And that is that is just good. That is just yummy. And what I will say, though, is that there's a very big difference between being detached service where we are offering our support to people who are asking for it, and doing the thing that so many of us as young empaths tend to do, which is rushing into rescue and going in and trying to fix things for people because we're uncomfortable that somebody else is uncomfortable. Because the thing about people like me and other empaths is that we feel better when other people feel better. And the problem is, if somebody doesn't want our help or is not ready for the information, we can really end up meddling with somebody's process and really kind of getting ourselves and them into trouble. And so, in my experience, that absolute sort of contact high that comes from working with somebody when something shifts for them, it is something that I only get to experience when I am working cleanly, and when I'm responding instead of reacting, and I am doing everything is consensual. Everything is, and it's a constant sort of calibrating process where I'm not just continuing to assume that I know things, but that I am coming back and saying, is this still landing for you? Is this still making sense for you? Does this feel like the right direction to go in? And when it is right, when it is aligned, and when somebody is saying, yes, please help me, I mean, it's the best thing ever.
Excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you said, I realized that I also do, but I didn't realize that I did it in like the way that you explained it. Like about the adapting, the way that you're trying to help someone or teach someone something. Like I do that all the time, every day as a teacher.
All the time, right.
And I guess I understood that I was doing it because of my empathic skills, but the way that you explained it just made something click a little bit for me that I didn't quite get, I don't think.
Awesome.
So let me jump in real quick. We are coming up on the on that sad time of the ad break is coming up here in a moment. So let's do this. We've been going at this already for over an hour. It doesn't seem like it. Let's I'll put
just barely over an hour.
Yeah, just a little bit. And so those ads
and we did spend a good amount of time talking about weather balloons.
Yes, all those fancy weather
for sure.
balloons.
All those fancy weather balloons. Yeah.
So let's do this real quick. We'll take a real quick break. I'll put us on the Be Right Back screen for like 3 minutes if someone needs to grab a beverage of their choice or run to the restroom real quick.
Keisha had a question we need to ask.
And I want to jump into something that we've kind of been talking about. So I have a bunch of questions still myself. So go ahead and go get your beverage, your snacky snack, or use the bathroom, and we'll be right back in about 3 minutes. All right, so we are back. Hopefully you got your snacky snacks, ice cream, strawberries, all kinds of stuff I'm seeing in chat here. We got, hopefully you're ready to go and ready to go for the rest of the program. We should be good to go now. So if you've joined us since we started, we have Jennifer Moore on the program tonight, and we are discussing all kinds of things, but right now we're on the topic of being an empath and what the ramifications of that are, and how that affects you, the benefits and of that, and what that means. So, Keisha had a question.
If you can feel and sense things in people, are you then able to kind of manipulate the energy as a healing for them?
Oh, boy, howdy, Keisha. Did you just ask the $1 million question? Yes, and. So I am a very strong believer. I've been a healer I've been studying healing and on this path for 4 decades. And what I will say is that if you don't have permission, you have absolutely no right to do it. And that while I can influence things, while I could broadcast, I could, any of us can manipulate things. If we don't have consent, we are violating their free will. And to me, that is a moral boundary. That is like a line I will not cross. And so, one of the things that I have seen is that when we don't necessarily know what we are, and especially when we're trying to stay safe, we do things like we'll kind of like psychically probe people, we'll kind of ping them to try to find out what's going on. But the thing is, people feel it when it happens. And you end up getting kind of like resistance coming back at you, which ironically, it's like if you're feeling anxious around somebody and then you try to figure out why are they behaving the way they're behaving, or why are they sort of like, are they angry? And we ping them and then they get more angry. It becomes kind of this loop. So when I am working with somebody who has said, yes, please, I would really love to work with you, I absolutely have the ability to sense the energy and to work with people to recalibrate that energy, to help bring it into alignment and bring it into flow. And that is something that I am incredibly grateful to be able to do. But for me, and this is very much about, my belief system and my worldview, I must have permission. And that is the only caveat, or the only time that I would say I have an exception to the rule, is when you are talking about being in a situation where like you're a first responder to somebody who is unconscious, or you are the guardian of a child or of a person who is cognitively incapable of making their own decisions. Otherwise, I feel very strongly that it is our responsibility, that we must get consent before we manipulate or influence or, tinker with somebody else's energy system. So how was that for an answer, Keisha? Did that answer your question?
You said that's amazing. Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome.
So my question is this, the ability of an empath, is that something that you think that's something that someone is born with, or do you think that is something that could be unlocked or learned throughout a lifetime?
All of the above. There are people out there right now who really believe, and you can find, in TikTok, you can find a bunch of this stuff where you got these people who are like, empaths are the way they are because because of trauma. Like there are people who are absolutely convinced that the only thing that makes somebody an empath is that they are survivors of trauma. My personal theory about that is that if that was the case, then every single human being on the planet would be an empath. Because there is no escaping trauma, especially when you start looking at the fact that we inherit trauma, and that it is passed down in our DNA. There's studies that are now finding that fear activates things, violence activates things, that epigenetically there is a change in our gene expressions when trauma occurs. So from that perspective, everybody's going to be influenced. So
real quick, I'm curious, do you know if you have any of that saved or bookmarked somewhere? I'd love to see any of those articles. If you have, maybe sometime you can send them over to me.
So actually I talk about, and I have in my book.
Excellent.
I have, in my, there's resources and references and sort of like bibliography, in the back of the book where we talk about some of the studies that have been done on inherited trauma. There was, and there's two of my favorite studies. One was done, and I know we're sort of going on a tangent here, but one study was done with rodents. I can never remember if it was rabbits or baby mice, but there was this study that was done where scientists basically took like this generation of rodents and exposed them to something really scary and harmful that made them feel really uncomfortable while simultaneously exposing them to the smell of cherry blossoms. And then they bred a bunch of like baby rodents, progeny, that, were were born like so and they went a couple generations forward without exposing the descendants to the original rodents that were exposed to this thing. When those descendants, like the grandbabies, were exposed to, when they exposed them to the smell of the cherry blossoms, they responded with the same level of stress and fear as their ancestors did, who were being put through something. Wow. That, to me, that study like blows my mind.
Yeah.
But it also shows to me like, this is why, and this is why I'm an EFT master trainer. This is why I use that as a tool. This is why we as a species have got to get our trauma dealt with. Because if we do not deal with our personal trauma as well as our inherited trauma, we are just going to keep on kicking the can down the road further and further and further. And we're going to go into the gaslighting behaviors of, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Those are just weather balloons, because we don't have the tools or the skills to deal with it.
Look how you brought that around full circle.
I know. I'm from a long line of poets, so I love the whole sort of like, how do I tie it all in and loop it in? But, you were asking the question of like, can we be, can it be activated? Are we born this way? Can it be developed? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I believe that some of us are born more sensitive than other people. And in the same way that some people are born with blue eyes, some people are born with, with incredible sports abilities or artistic abilities. Some of us are born with psychic abilities or empathic and empathic sensitivity. And in that way, like it's like, in the same way that I would never, ever, ever expect that I'm never going to be an NBA player in this lifetime. Like never, ever. I'm 5'3" of an inch and not particularly have lousy eye-hand coordination. I will never be an NBA player. Some people will never be empaths, and so when you got these people who are talking about, oh, everybody's an empath. No, everybody is not an empath. Empath, being an empath is on a spectrum, in my experience. You have some people who are sensitive to it and who are picking up the information like that's just in their immediate vicinity. Say they're just sensitive to, they have a cranky boss and they're sensitive to their cranky boss or their cranky parent, but they're not necessarily aware of the stuff that is going on locally or in their country or in a broader scope. But then you've got people who are so sensitive that they can like go to a place and pick up the frequency and the emotional vibration of a place, from something that happened in the past. There is also the ways that a lot of people will be picking up on the intensity of things that are happening elsewhere on the planet. And, people who are sensitive and who are very emotionally plugged in can read the visual cues and the body language and the social cues of people around them and have the experience of kind of, quote, maybe appearing to be an empath because they're responding to the cues. But when you're talking about somebody picking up on the grief of 49,000 people dead in Syria and Turkey 3 or 4 weeks in advance, that is a different thing. And so in my experience, there's definitely definitely those of us who are more sensitive and just have the tendencies. There's also circumstances in life that enhance this. And while I would not say that trauma is the only catalyst for empathy or for being an empath, it certainly can activate it in some people, because sometimes if you are in especially if a child is growing up in a really volatile environment, having these empathic abilities allows them to sense, like, when is the coast clear? When is dad so drunk that he's on, that it's going to be dangerous to come out of hiding? What's going on here? And so I think that empaths, some people will their empathic abilities get heightened by experiences in their past. And I also do think that there are some people who kind of come into it or deliberately work on developing that sensitivity.
Well, we have a question from Linguist. Here we go.
Okay.
How much do you think being an empath affects people who do tarot readings? This is a multi-part question. I'm just going to read all of it. Does it help to understand the reading for someone better because of how they feel the person they're reading for?
Yeah, absolutely. I would also say that the downside of it is that if you do not know how to let the information come through you, and you're absorbing the information and not like grounding it and letting it channel through, then you can end up coming away from the readings wondering why you are suddenly feeling so out of sorts and weird and wonky and stressed out. And so when I was younger and I was reading cards and doing a lot of psychic work with people, I could end up feeling bizarrely out of sorts and emotionally distressed for upwards of days while I was sort of trying to kind of assimilate, digest the energetic stuff that I had been picking up on. So I would say that this is one of those places where it is both an incredible gift and an ability because again, you're sensing, human beings, like our head and our thoughts are connected to our ego. And so it's part of our narrative, it's part of our story, but it's often not as accurate as the somatic felt experience of our emotional truth. And so as a tarot reader, if you have connection to that person's emotional and energy body, you're going to get a sense of the veracity of what you're saying at a level that somebody who's just maybe picking up the thoughts, like maybe you have some telepathic ability, you're engaging with their story more than you're engaging with their energy field. So I would, as empaths who are doing their personal work and dealing with their own stuff and not getting triggered by other people's distress make some of the best teachers, leaders, and healers and people in service professions on the planet.
Absolutely.
As well as psychics. Yeah.
Linguist did her very first stream last night of reading people oracle cards. And she said she felt very overwhelmed, and she actually, and I missed the end of it, but her cheeks were flushing and she got a headache. Mm-hmm. So what's some good advice for her as she goes forward in her new endeavors of how to let the things flow through you instead of it getting stuck?
So in my experience, one of the most important things that we need to do is really be working from the vibration of love and working from the vibration of like being connected to divine source, as opposed to working from the vibration of like the contagion of fear that is epidemic on the planet right now. And what we want to be doing is we want information, like the information is coming through us. And in my personal experience, it comes in through the crown, it comes in through the third eye, it comes in through the heart. And when I'm doing it the right way, it's processing out through the mouth, it's processing out through the hands, but then it's also just cascading down through my whole body and going back down into the earth. So I'm envisioning and imagining that I am a channel. I am in the center of a column of light, and that light and that energy is that I am in it, and I'm just being bathed in that light. And so when I'm reading for somebody, I might be getting the information, but the moment that I feel distress or the moment that I sense anything like weird or uncomfortable, I'm immediately sending it through me. I'm immediately releasing it. I'm immediately sending it back down. And the other thing that I'm hearing is, if you're very new to this, it's very likely that you are straining. It's very likely that what is happening is you're getting information, and then if you're like nearly every person I know who especially while first developing your psychic abilities, that when you're first doing that work, what we do is we second guess ourselves. And so then we stretch, we strain, we try to find answers, we go seeking. In my experience, when you are on and when the information is coming through you, there's an effortlessness to it. The information comes immediately. Like your mouth opens, and if you're, I'm assuming you're a speaking oracle because you're speaking, so that one of your primary ways of expressing yourself is through words. When you are in that place where you're just in the groove, it's coming through you, and there's not a lot of strain. But when you're first learning, and especially if you're still developing your chops with the cards, like you're still getting comfortable with the cards, you're still getting comfortable with the meaning, chances are there's going to be that little part of you that is going to be like worried about whether you're accurate, worried about whether or not you're hitting the mark, worried about like, am I saying it the right way? And the thing is that we need to, like, our job is to share the information that is flowing through us with as little investment in whether it's right or wrong as possible. Like, because the thing is that so often you may say something that is spot on, but either a person is not ready to hear it, or they cannot see it, like they're just not interpreting it or recognizing it. But I've heard so many stories about psychics where they did a reading, they were, and especially when you're doing these streams where we're doing cold reading, where it's like you may not even be able to see the person. All you see is like a name and like maybe a few words in the chat. When you're doing that, you are really, you're just like, I don't know, like your pants are down, like you're bare-assed and just going out there. It can be really easy to second guess yourself. And it can also be really hard when you get somebody who comes in and is like, nope, that's not right. Mm-hmm. The thing is that often, even if somebody is saying, nope, that doesn't register, that's not right, I can't even count the number of times that I've heard the story of people being like, or I've had the experience of people coming back and saying, you said this thing, turns out you were completely right. Mm-hmm. I just realized that this was that. So a lot of it
experience that as a medium all the time. That's all why
the time.
When you're, one of the first things you learn as a medium is don't second guess yourself. Don't question the information. Trust what you're getting is correct. Even if the person has no idea what the hell you're talking about, they might just not know the answer.
And, I had this experience a little while ago where I was doing a reading for of somebody, and their father, who had passed over fairly recently, was coming through, and he kept showing me frosting. Like, he just kept showing me frosting. And I'm like, I know this sounds really weird, but like, your dad is showing me frosting. And what it turned out, and then he sort of was like, I'm really worried about my wife eating too much sugar. The thing was, he had been a type 2 diabetic. His wife is not, but he was just really concerned. But then the person I was reading for spoke to their mother, and it turned out that she had been making cupcakes and was frosting cupcakes pretty much while we were having the conversation.
There you go.
There you go. And the thing is, it's that kind of stuff where it's like, if it may seem utterly bizarre or incongruous, or like, why am I getting this piece of this bizarro information? and I will just tell you, like, again and again, the most bizarre things where I've often been like, oh my God, am I supposed to say that? And I do, and it's accurate. It is what people need to hear. Mm-hmm. So, I think that when it comes to our psychic hygiene, it is really important to let the information flow through us and not be invested in the outcome, but then also taking the time to pause, taking the time to like recalibrate and notice, how am I feeling? Like, don't just keep on grabbing cards and moving at such a rapid pace that you're not having a chance to reboot. So like finding rituals for yourself. I use breath a lot, breathing in calmness and peace, breathing out any tension or worry that I'm carrying around, letting all that extra stuff just move through me, letting it flow through me, letting it sink into the earth, allowing it to just be released. I also will say that two of my favorite sayings, because I don't know if you guys use or are familiar with the idea of anchoring phrases or, just having words that sort of bring you back, reset you, reboot you. Some of the ones that really help me when I'm starting to take shit on, hopefully I can swear here. Sorry if I...
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. When I'm starting to take shit on is the old Polish proverb, not my circus, not my monkeys. Like really remembering, like not my circus, not my monkeys. Just because I'm getting the information does not mean I'm responsible. And then another one that I really love is your poor planning does not constitute my emergency. Because
oh, I like that one.
Yeah, isn't that good? I have this fantasy that one of these days I'm going to do a cross-stitch sampler with that message on it, because because the thing is, what I discovered also for empaths and sensitive people is that we can feel people's urgency and we can get sucked into that urgency and then feel as if it's our responsibility to take something on. And that can be a really hard challenge as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love both of those. So I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and ask my next one. Oh, no, we did. Keisha had another question. How hard is it to differentiate in readings between the empathic energy and intuition?
There's, empathic energy and intuition is like a spectrum. It's a fine line. And ultimately, what we want to do is move from empathic overwhelm to sensitive awareness of what is coming in from somebody's feelings, and also using our intuition. So for me, empathic information is often much more of a felt sense, like it's the visceral, primal feeling that somebody is stressed out, feeling that somebody is worrying about something, feeling that somebody is feeling, so it's much more of an emotional or a physiological thing. Whereas intuition can be about, like, if you're doing a reading, I mean, at any given point, there's probably 3 or 4 different things you could pick up and talk about. The intuition is going to be the part of you that is going to share what is it that you want to be talking about? What is it that what is it that you want to be talking about? What is the direction that you need to go in? Also, intuition is often going to give you more circumstantial information. It may be giving you more language. It may be giving you more like awareness of how something works. Whereas the empathic sensitivity is generally much more of a purely felt and energetic. It's much more of like just it's nonsensical. Intuition can have sense to it. Empathic ability often doesn't necessarily have, quote, sense, unquote, although it's very sensory. So, different meanings of the same word.
Yeah. Little Wing said you are like a string of wisdom pearls.
Thank you so much.
I love it.
All right,
So I want to know about.
Real
go
quick,
ahead.
real quick. So,
Okay.
because of having to restart the stream thing, ads are going to run again, but we won't take a break. But what I will do is I'm going to run them real quick. So some of you might disappear, so that's okay. We won't ask any questions real quick. But just to reset again, we have Jennifer Moore on tonight, and we're here talking about being an empath and lots of other things. I did want to say earlier, Shadow Max had gifted a sub to Shadow Spoken, so thank you for that. Also at the beginning,
the shadows for sharing.
Yeah, all the shadows are sharing. Yeah, and Hoaxers also subscribed earlier at the beginning of the stream. So thank you guys so much for that. Remember, you guys, Keisha and everyone has been doing a really good job at posting all the websites there for Jennifer Moore at the top. So you can go. I was on her website previously, so go to her website, and from there is like everywhere you need to go. Amazon,
all the things.
Yeah, Amazon to buy the book. All the things are there. So
Facebook,
make sure to check that out.
The Instagram, etc., etc.
All the things. I don't do the Twitter anymore because they got really, when it became the cesspool that it is now, I was just kind of like, I'm out of here, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I just wanted to say, there's a method to my madness when it comes to URLs. If you want to find the book, empathicmasterybook.com. If you want to find the podcast, empathicmasteryshow.com. If you want to learn more about becoming part of the Empathic Mastery Academy, that would be empathicmasteryacademy.com. But I will admit, right now that URL is down, and so you'll get a picture of me pulling my hair out on my website on that one. But I found, just like, so basically Empathic Mastery and then add the word that is connected to the thing. So Empathic Mastery book is where you can learn about all of my books. And
Jennifer has her own podcast, and I listened to one of them today, and it was fabulous. And now I want to go listen to all of them. And another really fun thing on her website that I've done about 4 times already today is at the bottom of the homepage, you can pick a card from the Empathic Mastery Oracle, and it'll just like flip a little card at you with some little wisdom of information. It's like so fun. Why did more people not do that?
Yeah. And I was on YouTube earlier. So yeah, lots of good podcast episodes on YouTube. So you can go check those out. Lots of stuff to keep you guys busy. So
lots of stuff to keep you guys busy. And not only are there a lot of podcasts on my YouTube channel, but there's also a ton of tap along videos and even some master classes and things like that. And I also actually have a free Facebook group where I teach monthly master classes and last night I ran a masterclass called Help that was all about being a light worker, and especially like in the like kind of right now in the middle of this dumpster fire, how do we navigate when there is so much misery, there is so much agony, and especially how do we navigate in a way that keeps us in the light, keeps us in the love, keeps us in the compassion without spiritual bypassing. Because that seems to me one of the things that unfortunately some people do is that they go straight from the fear into the burying their head in the sand or just completely ignoring that there are a lot of people right now who are really in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few ways we can go right now. We're getting close to 10 and we got some time. And Jennifer had talked about possibly doing some readings with the deck there. We have questions popping up about the Akashic Records, which we talked about at the very beginning. We have a bunch of places I wanted to go. We haven't gone yet. So I think even though the show's not over yet, I think we're going to have to open an invite for you to come back whenever you would like.
I would love to come back. It would be you guys are just a delight.
Excellent.
Just wonderful.
So how do we feel? How do we want to do maybe a couple readings? And then we can pick up with that next time. What do you think, Medium Janine?
I think we should ask the question Linguist wanted to ask because she spent the channel points to highlight it.
Yes.
And then we'll let Jennifer do a few little oracle card readings. Linguist questions was, how do you get more information on Akashic records?
So first off, what I want to say in regards to the Akashic records is that every single one of us knows the record halls and knows the Akashic records because this is the place that our soul goes to between every single incarnation. This is where we go to review our lives. This is where we go to get information about the lives that we're about to embark on. But what I will say is just because you looked at the life, it's like a course catalog. You can see the syllabus, but there is a really big difference between reading what the life is going to be like and actually experiencing it. So anybody who's like, well, you chose your reality, you chose your birth. It's like, well, yeah, but I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Yeah. Like the teacher said to buy this book that cost $200 and we never opened it.
Right.
And that's something we can get into a lot more because I have a lot of questions about that myself. Now, that's something we can get into. But don't you have a past life meditation thing coming up, Denny?
Yes. And March 18th, we have a past life meditation circle.
And when I did my the first couple past life meditations, I was able to go to the Akashic records. So I've been there myself, and it's an amazing experience, unique to, I think, to everyone who does it. It's like it can be a very impressive experience to do.
It can really be an impressive experience. I was trained by an amazing woman. Her name is Joanna Hunter. She's a Scottish medium and psychic and just really amazing light worker. And so Joanna I trained and got certified through Joanna. One of the things that makes the way I was taught to do Akashic record work different is that I was taught to facilitate people learning how to access their own records so that it's more about what are you getting and what are you finding for yourself, as opposed to, some readers will just read the records for you and tell you shit. I was taught to help people find their way to it, which I find amazing. And I was just thinking, as Keisha was asked, it was not Keisha that was asking the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it was linguist. Yeah, linguist.
Yeah. So linguist was asking the question. There's a book that came out fairly recently that's fictional. It's called The Midnight Library by Matthew Haig. And while it is not necessarily advertised as a book about the Akashic records, it's about the Akashic Record Hall. And essentially, it is a story about a woman who commits suicide and who then proceeds to go to the Record Hall and live through every single quantum reality possibility she could.
Wow.
It's real. And if you're an audiobook fan, Carrie Mulligan is the narrator for it. And it is it's gold. It's really wonderful. But what I would say is that you probably have been there and you don't even know you're going there. Because my personal experience was that I had been working with the records for a really long time before I was formally trained in them and in working with them. And what I believe is instinctively, it's like a return address. It's like we got the GPS coordinates inside of us for the record halls because we are sentient beings. And anything that has an energetic signature has the GPS coordinates to the Akashic Record Hall within them.
We got a cat invasion going on over
cat
there.
And chat, yeah.
What a sweetheart.
Linguists also wanted to know if you do any master classes for the Akashic records.
I do master classes at various points in time based on what's coming up. And so like right now I'm doing a string of master classes on using EFT and tapping for all kinds of stuff. And probably later in the summer, I'll be doing something around the Akashic records because it is just, and I actually have been a guest in other groups where I've had the privilege and the opportunity to do a masterclass on Akashic Records. So the answer, the short answer, or the I don't know, long answer to a short question is yes.
Yeah, look forward to that summer.
And I would like to learn more about that, because on my trip there to meet a spirit guide, and then my grandfather was. So I haven't even gotten into the whole thing of like finding information. So that would would definitely be something to look forward to. So it's
I mean, the record hall is everything, like anything you can even imagine. Like I'm just like, you can find anything there. It's kind of like the it's funny, I've been really reticent to use any references to J.K. Rowling anymore, just because she's behaving like such an idiot, or that's the kind word for it.
Yeah,
but
we'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. So I don't necessarily, but it's like the Akashic Record Hall is like the most amazing like hall of acquisition. It's just everything is there, and there, everything is there. It's the coolest place. It's just remarkable.
Yay. Excellent. All right. So do we want to end the night with an oracle card or two? Yeah. We've got a few more minutes.
Yeah. So how do we, I don't have a cue in here, Jennifer? So we got to figure it out.
Did
you want to pull like a collective one for
how about we do a 3-card, sort of do a collective 3 cards. So you guys decide A, B, C, or all of the above. Okay. So just feeling into A, B, C, or all of the above. And I am using, this is the Empathic Mastery Oracle deck that is affirmations that all of these came from, like, distilled down from work that I did with clients. And so what's cool about it is that they're energetically aligned. So I'm going to just, as opposed to just kind of like trying to force something. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull an A card. A is really obvious. It's like right there. I'm going to pull a B card, which is a little bit less obvious, but still was fairly easy to pull. And then the C card is buried up a little bit more under the surface. And then I'm just hearing to pull one final card, which is the kind of, oh, by the way, it's kind of like the modifier, in case we didn't make it all perfectly clear to you by now.
So you guys in the chat, think about it for a second. Do you want
think about it. A, B, C, or all of the above.
Or all of the above.
Okay, so A, I let go of people who are not drawn to my brilliance or truth. I focus my energy on those who seek my gift. So this actually really reinforces what we were talking about earlier, about the fact that we do not need to be everything for everyone. We do not need to try to please the skeptics. We do not need to try to, really, 0 Fs. It's like the people that are seeking your gifts, the people that are ready to work with you, are the ones we want to serve. There are plenty of them on this planet. Stop trying to meet the needs of the people who are just basically Debbie Downers or jerks. Like, you don't owe an excuse or an explanation to anyone. If you know something is your truth, it's your truth. And if somebody else is like, a naysayer, you do you, boo. You do you, boo. It's not, but just really, I let go of people who are not drawn to my brilliance or truth. I focus my energy on those who seek my gift. And I release the rest.
Love it. There's enough people in the world for all the people that want to heal.
And, the whole idea of wanting everybody to like us, I don't know. There are certain people where I'm like, I don't like them. Why would I want them to like me? Yep. And also, we could not, if the entire universe was like, I want your help, we'd be overwhelmed beyond the beyond. Absolutely. None of us are here to work with absolutely everybody on this planet. The second card, and these cards, I just want to say, I'm detecting a theme already. And the second card, these cards are like, there's affirmations about everything in here. I follow my heart to serve the unique purpose that I am here to fulfill on this earth. I am meant to be here. So what I'm getting about this immediately is I'm imagining that there's a lot of misfit toys here in this conversation tonight, that there's a lot of us.
How did you guess that?
How did I guess that? Because hello, misfit toy. Now I look like Mrs. Claus, but as a younger person, yeah.
Toys, yeah.
Yeah, and some of us want to be dentists, but but the thing is that when we have that experience, and especially if we've grown up in environments where we've received that invalidation or that gaslighting, or like you couldn't possibly make a living doing that, or who do you think you are? Why are you blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff can really make us question our worth, can make us question our purpose, can make us question what we're here to do. But the truth is that when we move out of, and this is one of the pieces about this card that I think is so incredibly important, we have to move out of our head, out of our ego, and out of our stories, and into our heart to serve the unique purpose that we are here to fulfill on this earth. And that will allow us to know that we are meant to be here. Because our heads are caught up in the Yiddish word mishigas. Our heads are caught up in all of the ego and the worry and the perseverating and the awfulizing and the second guessing. But our hearts are connected to the universal heart of love. Our hearts are connected to the interconnected web of life. We are all cells in the body of this earth. And when we live in our heart instead of our head, we know in a way that we are meant to be here, in a way that when we are in our head, we often will forget. Card number 3, or C, even though I may still feel like I'm a work in progress, I can honor my efforts and love myself anyway. And I think that, so often we are focused on the thing that is wrong with us, the thing that we need to improve, the thing that feels like it's not quite there yet. And yet the paradox is, as long as we keep focusing on what's wrong, we will always be a work in progress, and we will always feel like we're not there. But when we tune into loving and accepting ourselves anyway, and really owning, I am doing the very best I can. I honor my efforts and I love myself anyway. Miracles have a weird way of happening, because what starts to happen is we start to decompress and de-stress, and we start noticing what's working. Because there is, you may have heard the term confirmation bias. The stuff we believe is what we see. It's what we find. It's what we continuously look for. So if we're looking at ourselves as a work in progress and feeling like we're just not finished and we got to be better and we need to improve, then that's what we're going to see. But when we start honoring our efforts and really cultivating profound love for ourselves, then we're going to start seeing what's right about us. Then we're going to start seeing what we can celebrate us. And then we can start having mercy for ourselves, as opposed to, just constantly being relentless and cruel and mean to ourselves. Okay, so those were the 3 cards. And then the final card, which is the, oh, by the way, just in case we hadn't made it all perfectly clear, we want you to know, it is safe for me to welcome love. I use the tools I need to recognize good, healthy relationships. It is safe for me to welcome love. I use the tools I need to recognize good, healthy relationships. And, that's the thing, is that as we work with becoming more and more conscious as sensitive people, as we learn to recognize what our own personal boundaries are, and we put our own self-care and self-love first, then we can also discern what is a healthy relationship and what is something that is no longer serving us because, it's codependent, it's enmeshed, we're picking up on, one of the things I've really found is that as empaths and sensitive people, we will pick up on the urgency of people, but we'll also pick up on the will of people and the desire of people. And when somebody really wants something, empaths can be really vulnerable to getting swayed by that. And as we learn to use the tools to really regulate our own nervous system and really find calmness within ourselves, then what happens is we start to be able to discern what is actually healthy and what is just like a gaslit hot mess that we don't want to have anything to do with. So those were the cards for tonight. You guys.
Everybody is crying and this is amazing. That was awesome. People are giving each other hugs.
Excellent.
Yes. Excellent cards for our Team Weird bunch.
I am so, you guys, it's been such a pleasure to connect with all of you. My phone has been rebooting the entire time that I've been on, so I have not been able to be on Twitch to watch this with you guys, but I can feel you guys, and I am just loving you. You guys are such a crew.
Yeah. Keisha said that was amazing. Hoaxers, very amazing. Keisha said, Jennifer, we can't wait until you come back.
Come back.
I can't wait to come back. I can't wait to come back. And if you guys are Facebookers, please come and join the Empathic Mastery Circle. That would be, if you want to come join me, it's empathicmastery.com/masterclass. And that way you also will get signed up for my mailing list. But we just did a masterclass. And honestly, I think the masterclass I taught last night is one of the best I've ever done. I was so proud of it. I'm actually thinking I'm going to turn it into a podcast because it was I'm going to make that a solo podcast. But, please come on over and join the fun there too, because
a lot of our folks have said they're already following.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad.
That's excellent.
Oh, wonderful.
Awesome. Okay, so just to catch everybody up on what we have coming up on the Witching Hours. Let's see here. We have 2 weeks from today. So every 2 weeks is the Witching Hours. Then
March 2nd.
Our next guest on March 2nd is going to be Pamela K. Kinney. She is the author of quite a few books. Many books. Both fiction and nonfiction. But I think we're going to, I have read one of her books about the
Ghosties.
Yeah, in our local area that she specifically wrote about. But she has written some books on cryptids. And so we are going to have a discussion about cryptids on the show.
And Priestess of Wonderland's going to make her first segment with us about stuff we need to know about the moon for the month.
So we're going to have the moon cycles, like what's going on with the moon, with the news segment every the first show of the month. On the 16th of March, we're going to bring in Ragnar Eriksson, who is one of the videos we watched for the near-death experience. So we're going to have him on to talk about all kinds of things. And we are going to have, on the 30th, Vicky Loubier back.
We're finally getting Vicky back to come talk about Lilydale and spiritualism. Yay.
Yes, so that's going to be a fun time. And I have already started talking to Mark Hunter Brooks about coming back on, and he is eager to discuss the thing we talked about last time. He wanted to look into the Mandela effect, and I know that's always a popular subject.
Spicy,
thanks
and
once
now
again.
We have to plan another one with Jennifer Moore.
For sure, because it's one of those things where it's like, how long can we go? Well, we just have to create a part. Thank you once again, Jennifer for coming on. Go visit her website, do all the follows and all those things. Yeah. And everyone have a wonderful night. And we will see everyone next time. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will see most of you back
guys tomorrow night.
For Medium Jane Lee's reading night. All right, good night, everybody, and Jennifer Moore. We will talk to you in just a second. So we'll just stay on here, and we will talk to you in a minute.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. This has been a blast. Yay. I really enjoyed you. Oh, thank you so much.
Much love, they said.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Bye.